The whip cracked across Selena's back before she could brace herself. She stumbled forward, her knees hitting the frozen ground, as pain exploded through her body like wildfire. Blood seeped through the thin fabric of her tunic, mixing with the dirt and sweat that caked her skin. Around her, the other pack members continued their work, their eyes deliberately averted. No one would help her. No one ever did. "Get up, Omega filth!" snarled Marcus, the pack enforcer, his voice dripping with contempt. "Those logs won't move themselves. Alpha Theron wants the ceremonial ground cleared before sunset, and if you fail, you'll spend another night in the pit." Selena's fingers dug into the earth as she forced herself upright. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest. She'd been working since before dawn, hauling timber that weighed nearly as much as she did, her Omega strength pushed far beyond its natural limits. The winter air bit at her exposed skin, but she barely felt the cold anymore. Pain had become her constant companion, a familiar presence that had shaped her existence for as long as she could remember. She was 17 years old, though she looked younger. Malnutrition and constant abuse had stunted her growth, leaving her small and fragile-looking among the robust wolves of the Silver Mist pack. Her dark hair hung in matted tangles around her face, and her once bright eyes had dulled to a listless gray. She moved like a ghost through the pack grounds, invisible except when someone needed a target for their cruelty. Selena gripped the rough bark of a massive log, her hands already blistered and bleeding from hours of labor. She pulled with everything she had, her back screaming in agony where the whip had struck. The log barely moved. Behind her she heard Marcus laugh, a sound devoid of any warmth or humanity. "Pathetic," he said. "How Alpha Theron tolerates your existence, I'll never understand. You're not even worth the scraps we throw you." The words stung worse than the whip. Selena had heard variations of this cruelty her entire life. She'd been found abandoned at the pack's borders when she was 3 years old, a tiny child with no memory of where she had come from or who her parents were. Alpha Theron had taken her in, but only as an act of supposed mercy that the pack never let her forget. She was the lowest of the low, an Omega with no family, no protection, and no hope of anything better. As she struggled with the log, her mind drifted to the ceremony that would take place tonight. The first shift ceremony was a sacred tradition in the Silver Mist pack, the moment when young wolves experienced their first transformation under the full moon. Selena had reached the age of shifting 6 months ago, but Alpha Theron had deliberately delayed her ceremony. Some said it was because he enjoyed keeping her in suspense. Others whispered that he hoped she might die before reaching this milestone, saving the pack the embarrassment of having such a weak Omega complete the sacred ritual. But tonight, she would finally shift. Tonight, everything would change, or so she had foolishly allowed herself to hope. There was a part of her, buried deep beneath layers of pain and resignation, that still believed her wolf might be special, that her transformation might reveal something that would earn her a sliver of respect. That naive part of her heart still beat with desperate optimism. Before we continue, let me ask you a question. Where are you watching us from? "Selena!" Another voice cut through her thoughts. This one belonged to Mira, one of the few pack members who occasionally showed her a moment of kindness, though never when others were watching. "Alpha Theron wants you at the ceremonial grounds immediately. It's time to prepare." Selena dropped the log and turned, her body trembling with exhaustion. Marcus stepped aside with a sneer, and she stumbled past him, her legs barely supporting her weight. The walk to the ceremonial grounds felt endless. Every step was agony, but she forced herself forward. She couldn't afford to show weakness now, not when she was so close to the one moment that might define the rest of her life. The ceremonial grounds occupied a clearing at the heart of the pack's territory. Ancient stones formed a circle around a central platform, their surfaces carved with symbols that dated back centuries. Pack members were already gathering, their excitement palpable in the crisp evening air. Young wolves preparing for their first shift were treated with reverence and celebration. Their families would stand beside them, offering encouragement and support. But Selena had no family. She would stand alone, as she always had. Alpha Theron waited on the platform, his massive frame radiating power and authority. He was a formidable wolf in both human and shifted form, with silver hair that matched the pack's name and eyes like chips of ice. Beside him stood his son, Orion, the alpha heir who would one day lead the Silvermist pack. Orion was everything Selena was not: strong, confident, admired by all. He was 21 years old, in the prime of his power, and every female in the pack competed for his attention. Selena had learned long ago not to look at Orion directly. Omegas were forbidden from meeting the eyes of their superiors, and the punishment for such insolence was severe. But sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she would steal a glance at him and allow herself to imagine a different life, one where she was worthy of more than contempt. "Selena," Alpha Theron's voice boomed across the clearing as she approached, "you will take your place at the edge of the circle. When the moon rises to its peak, you will shift. Do not disgrace this pack with your weakness." She bowed her head, not trusting her voice. The other young wolves, 3 in total, stood proudly with their families. Their parents beamed with pride. Their siblings offered words of encouragement. Selena stood apart, isolated and alone, exactly as she had been her entire life. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The pack gathered in greater numbers, filling the spaces between the ancient stones. Selena could feel their eyes on her, could hear their whispered mockery. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to make herself even smaller, wishing she could disappear entirely. As darkness fell, torches were lit around the circle, their flames dancing in the evening breeze. The full moon rose, enormous and luminous, its light bathing the ceremonial grounds in silver. Selena felt something stir within her, a presence she had never experienced before. Her wolf was awakening, responding to the moon's call. The sensation was both terrifying and exhilarating. Alpha Theron raised his hands, and the crowd fell silent. "Tonight, we witness the sacred transformation of our young into their true forms. Tonight, they will know the power that flows through our bloodline, the strength that makes us Silvermist. Let the ceremony begin." The 3 other young wolves shifted first, their transformation smooth and graceful. They were beautiful in their wolf forms, powerful and sure. Their families erupted in celebration, pride and joy written across every face. Then all eyes turned to Selena. The pressure of their collective gaze felt like a physical weight. Selena closed her eyes and reached for the presence she felt stirring inside her. Her wolf was there, waiting, but something felt different. There was a power in her that seemed too large, too overwhelming. It frightened her even as it called to her. The transformation began with pain. Her bones cracked and reformed, her muscles tearing and reshaping. She bit back a scream, refusing to give the pack the satisfaction of hearing her suffer. Her body convulsed, and she fell to her hands and knees. The shift should have taken seconds, but something was wrong. It felt like her body was fighting against itself, as if 2 forces were warring within her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the transformation completed. Selena stood on 4 legs, her body trembling with exhaustion, but the expected murmurs of acknowledgement never came. Instead, there was only stunned silence, followed by eruptions of laughter. She looked down at herself and understood. Her wolf form was small, even smaller than her human body had suggested. Her fur was a dull gray, unremarkable and plain. She looked exactly like what she was, a weak Omega who had no business participating in a sacred ceremony. The other young wolves, magnificent in their shifted forms, stood at least twice her size. She was a joke, a pathetic creature that had only confirmed everyone's worst expectations. The laughter grew louder, more cruel. Pack members pointed and jeered, their mockery echoing through the clearing. Selena wanted to shift back, to run and hide, but her wolf form seemed frozen, paralyzed by shame and humiliation. Then Orion stepped forward. The crowd quieted, anticipating his response. As the alpha heir, his words carried immense weight. Selena dared to hope that he might offer even a scrap of dignity, some acknowledgement that she had completed the ceremony despite everything working against her. Orion looked down at her, his handsome face twisted in disgust. "This is what passes for a wolf in our pack now?" His voice carried across the clearing, ensuring everyone heard. "I have seen rats with more presence than this pathetic creature. Look at her, cowering and weak, a disgrace to everything Silvermist stands for." The words hit Selena like physical blows. She felt her wolf cringe, felt the last fragile piece of her hope shatter into dust. But Orion wasn't finished. I, Orion Theron, heir to the Silver Mist Pack, formally reject any bond or connection to this Omega. Let it be known that she is beneath my notice, unworthy of even the lowest consideration. I would rather die mateless than accept such weakness into my bloodline. The rejection slammed into Selena with devastating force. Something inside her broke, a connection she hadn't even known existed until it was severed. Her wolf howled in anguish, a sound of such profound pain that even some of the crueler pack members looked away in discomfort. The mate bond, the sacred connection that was supposed to be every wolf's birthright, had been rejected before it could even form. Orion wasn't just mocking her, he was ensuring she would never know that fundamental connection. Selena's legs gave out. She collapsed on the platform, her small wolf form shaking with sobs she couldn't control. The laughter continued, a cacophony of cruelty that seemed to come from all directions. Through her tears, she saw Alpha Theron's face, and there was something in his expression that looked almost like satisfaction, as if this had been his intention all along. "Remove her from my sight," Theron commanded. "She has fulfilled the requirement of the ceremony. What happens to her now is of no concern to me." Marcus and 2 other enforcers approached, their intentions clear. They would drag her away, probably throw her back into the pit or worse. Selena didn't resist as they grabbed her, their hands rough and uncaring. Her spirit was broken, her last hope extinguished. She had nothing left. They hauled her toward the edge of the pack grounds, away from the continuing celebration. The sounds of joy and pride faded behind her, replaced by the lonely whisper of wind through bare trees. They threw her down beside the boundary markers, where pack territory ended and the wild forest began. "Stay here until morning," Marcus spat. "If you're smart, you won't come back at all." They left her there, alone in the darkness. Selena shifted back to her human form, curling into a ball against the cold. She had no tears left to cry, no energy left to feel anything. The rejection had carved out something essential from inside her, leaving only emptiness. Hours passed. The moon continued its journey across the sky, indifferent to her suffering. Selena stared at nothing, her mind blank, her body numb. She thought about Marcus's words, about simply walking into the forest and never returning. Would anyone even notice? Would anyone care? A twig snapped nearby. Selena's head lifted slightly, some survival instinct forcing her to pay attention despite her emptiness. 4 figures emerged from the shadows of the forest, moving with a grace and power that immediately marked them as alphas. They were tall and imposing, each one carrying themselves with an authority that made Alpha Theron look like a pretender to power. The lead figure stepped into a shaft of moonlight, revealing a face that was both stern and beautiful. He had dark hair that fell to his shoulders and eyes that seemed to pierce through all pretense. The raw power radiating from him made the air itself feel heavy. "Selena Winter," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "We've been searching for you for 15 years. Selena stared at him, confusion cutting through her numbness. "I don't know you," she whispered. The man who had spoken knelt down, bringing himself closer to her level. Up close, Selena could see that his eyes were a striking amber color, like honey caught in sunlight. There was something in his gaze that she couldn't identify, an emotion that seemed both fierce and gentle at once. "My name is Cassian Winter," he said. "I am the Alpha Lord of the Northern Territories, and I am your brother. These 3 men with me are also your brothers. We are your family, Selena, and we have spent every day since you were stolen from us searching for any trace of you." Selena's mind reeled. Brother? Family? The words seemed to come from a different language, one she had never learned to speak. She had been alone for so long that the concept of belonging to anyone felt foreign and impossible. Another man stepped forward, this one with lighter hair and softer features. There was a wisdom in his eyes that spoke of deep knowledge and careful thought. "I am Alaric," he said gently. "I am a healer, and I can see that you have endured much pain. Please let me help you." Before Selena could respond, Alaric's hands began to glow with a soft golden light. He reached toward her, and she flinched instinctively, expecting pain. But when his fingers touched her torn back, There was only warmth and an immediate easing of the constant ache that had become her normal state. The wounds from the whip began to close, the bruises faded, and the bone-deep exhaustion that had weighed on her for years lifted like fog under morning sun. The third man was studying her with intense focus, his green eyes analyzing every detail. He was lean and sharp-featured, with an intelligence that seemed to radiate from him. "I am Amon," he said, "a strategist and scholar. We have much to discuss about your past and your future, but first, we need to get you away from this place." The fourth man hung back slightly, his presence somehow both there and not there, as if he existed partially in shadow. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried an edge that suggested deadly capability. "Kieran," he said simply, "Shadow Operative. I've been tracking the movements of the Silver Mist Pack for 3 months, waiting for the right moment to extract you. Tonight's ceremony gave us the opening we needed." Selena's head swam with information she couldn't process. "I don't understand," she managed. "How can you be my brothers? I was found abandoned. I have no family." Cassian's expression darkened with barely contained rage, though Selena instinctively knew the anger wasn't directed at her. "You were not abandoned, Selena. You were taken. 15 years ago, our pack was attacked by rogues hired for that specific purpose. You were 3 years old. In the chaos, you were stolen from your nursery. Our parents died trying to find you. We have spent every year since that night following every lead, tracking every whisper, until Kieran finally discovered you here, hidden in plain sight among the Silver Mist Pack." The revelation hit Selena like a tidal wave. Her entire understanding of her existence was being rewritten in real time. She wasn't unwanted. She'd been wanted so desperately that an entire family had spent 15 years searching for her. She wasn't worthless. She had been valuable enough to steal. Everything she had believed about herself was based on a lie. "But why?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why would someone take me? I'm just an Omega. I'm nothing special." All 4 brothers exchanged glances, and Selena saw something flicker in their expressions that looked like concern mixed with anticipation. Cassian reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather pouch. From it, he withdrew a pendant on a silver chain. The pendant was carved from moonstone and depicted a wolf howling at a crescent moon. Selena recognized it immediately. She had seen the same symbol in her dreams for as long as she could remember. "This belonged to our mother," Cassian said, placing the pendant in Selena's trembling hands. "She wore it every day of her life, as did her mother before her, going back 7 generations. It marks the Daughters of the Winter bloodline, one of the oldest and most powerful alpha families in our world." Selena stared at the pendant, her fingers tracing the intricate carving. "But I'm an Omega," she repeated, as if saying it enough times would make the reality of her weakness insurmountable. Alaric moved closer, his healer's intuition clearly picking up on her distress. "Selena, what you have experienced here is not your true nature. The Silver Mist Pack has been suppressing your wolf, whether intentionally or through the constant abuse you endured. I cannot yet say. But I can sense the power within you, and it is anything but weak. You are an alpha, sister, born of an alpha lineage that predates most of the packs in this region." The statement seemed impossible. Selena had lived 17 years believing she was the weakest of the weak. Her wolf form had just proven that in front of the entire pack. How could she possibly be an alpha? "I don't believe you," she whispered. "You saw me tonight. Everyone saw what I really am." Amon spoke up, his analytical mind apparently having reached a conclusion. "What we saw tonight was a wolf emerging under the worst possible circumstances. You were malnourished, exhausted from forced labor, and surrounded by hostility. Your wolf responded to those conditions by making itself as small and non-threatening as possible. It was a survival mechanism, not a reflection of your true nature," Kieran added from his position in the shadows. "I've been watching you for 3 months, Selena. I've seen how you move when you think no one is looking. There's a grace and awareness in you that no Omega possesses. You've survived in an environment designed to break you, and yet you're still here. That alone speaks to a strength most wolves never have to discover." Selena wanted to believe them. Some part of her, the same part that had clung to hope during the ceremony, reached desperately for the possibility that their words were true. But 15 years of conditioning couldn't be undone in a single conversation. She had been told she was worthless so many times that it had become the foundation of her identity. "Even if what you say is true," she said slowly, "even if I am your sister, even if there's some power in me that I've never been able to access, what difference does it make? Alpha Theron won't let me leave. The pack would hunt me down. And Orion rejected me in front of everyone. That bond is broken forever." At the mention of Orion's rejection, all four brothers went very still. The temperature around them seemed to drop by several degrees, and Selena felt the weight of their combined alpha presence pressing down like a physical force. She had never experienced anything like it. Even Alpha Theron, at his most intimidating, had never generated this level of raw power. Cassian spoke, and his voice had taken on a quality that made Selena's wolf whimper in recognition of absolute authority. "Orion Theron rejected you?" Each word was carefully controlled, but underneath Selena could hear the fury of an alpha lord who had just learned that someone had harmed what was his to protect. Selena nodded, unable to speak. The memory of Orion's words was still too fresh, the pain of the severed bond still too sharp. She had thought nothing could hurt worse than the years of abuse, but she had been wrong. The rejection had found a new depth of agony she hadn't known existed. Alaric's hands were glowing again, but this time the light was directed at Selena's chest, where she could still feel the echo of the broken bond. His expression shifted from concern to shock to something that looked like barely contained rage. "The bond wasn't just rejected," he said quietly. "It was forced. Orion Theron is your fated mate, Selena. That connection is written in your very souls. For him to reject it, especially at the moment of your first shift when such bonds are most vulnerable, he has committed an act that violates every sacred law of our kind. Fated mate." The term resonated through Selena like a bell, awakening something she hadn't known was sleeping. Fated mates were rare, precious beyond measure. They were two souls that the moon goddess herself had crafted to fit together perfectly. To reject such a bond was considered an abomination, an insult to the divine order that governed werewolf society. "He said I was beneath his notice," Selena said, and was surprised to find that her voice was stronger now. Some of the numbness was beginning to fade, replaced by a growing anger that felt both foreign and right. "He said he would rather die mateless than accept me." Aemon's strategic mind was clearly working through implications. "Alpha Theron knew," he said. "He must have known or at least suspected that you were Orion's fated mate. That's why he delayed your ceremony for so long, why he ensured you were as weak and broken as possible before allowing you to shift. He wanted Orion to reject you, to sever that bond before it could fully form and complicate his plans." "What plans?" Selena asked. Kieran emerged fully from the shadows, and Selena saw that he held a folder thick with documents. "While tracking you, I uncovered evidence of a conspiracy. Alpha Theron has been secretly allying with several rogue factions. He's planning something significant, something that requires the consolidation of power and the elimination of potential threats. A fated mate bond to the daughter of the Winterline would have been an enormous complication to those plans." The pieces were falling into place with horrifying clarity. Selena hadn't been kept as an omega out of cruel indifference. She had been deliberately suppressed, her true nature hidden and contained, because allowing her to bloom into her power would have threatened whatever schemes Alpha Theron was orchestrating. "So what happens now?" Selena asked, looking at each of her brothers in turn. "If everything you're saying is true, if I really am who you claim, what am I supposed to do?" Cassian extended his hand to her, and in that gesture, Selena saw both an offer and a promise. "Now, sister, you come home. We take you to the Northern Territories where you fought, belong. Alaric will heal not just your physical wounds, but help you recover your true strength. Aemon will educate you on your heritage and your rights. Kieran will ensure your safety. And I will teach you what it means to be a Winter, to wield the power that is your birthright." "And then?" Selena pressed. She needed to understand the full scope of what accepting their offer would mean. Cassian's smile was predatory, the expression of an alpha who had just identified his prey. "And then, if you choose, we will return here. We will reveal your true identity to the Silver Mist Pack and to all who witness, and we will ensure that Alpha Theron and his son answer for their crimes against you and against our family." The promise of justice, of vindication, sang through Selena's blood. But there was also fear. She had been broken down so thoroughly that the prospect of building herself back up seemed insurmountable. Could she really transform from the weak Omega everyone knew into the powerful Alpha her brothers claimed she could be? She looked down at the pendant still clutched in her hand, at the symbol that represented a heritage she had been denied. Then she looked up at the four men who claimed to be her family, at the hope and determination in their eyes. They believed in her even when she couldn't believe in herself. "How long?" she asked. "How long will it take to train me, to help me become who you say I am?" Alaric considered carefully before answering. "Your body will heal quickly once proper nutrition and care are provided, perhaps 3 weeks to reach optimal physical condition. Your wolf will take longer. We need to undo years of suppression and help her emerge fully. That could take 2 to 3 months of dedicated work. Your combat training and education will be ongoing, but you'll have the basics within 6 months." 6 months. It seemed both impossibly long and frighteningly short. 6 months to transform from nothing into something capable of facing the pack that had destroyed her. And what about Orion? The question escaped before Selena could stop it, and she hated herself for asking, for caring about someone who had hurt her so deeply. Cassian's expression softened slightly. The rejection of a fated mate bond leaves scars on both parties, though the one who is rejected bears the worst of it. Orion will come to realize what he has lost, what he threw away in his arrogance and cruelty. When that realization hits, it will devastate him. But whether you choose to forgive him or make him suffer for eternity is entirely your decision. We will support whatever choice you make. Selena took a deep breath, feeling as if she stood at a crossroads that would define the rest of her existence. Behind her lay 15 years of pain and degradation, a life not worth living. Ahead of her lay uncertainty and challenge, but also possibility. The choice should have been easy, yet some part of her hesitated, conditioned to expect that anything good would be snatched away. Then she remembered Orion's face as he rejected her, remembered the laughter of the pack, remembered every blow and every insult and every moment of humiliation. She remembered being told she was worthless, being made to believe she deserved her suffering. And something inside her, something that had been dormant for 15 years, finally awakened. "I'll come with you," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Teach me everything, make me strong. And when I'm ready, I'm going to return here and show everyone exactly what they threw away." Cassian's smile was fierce with approval. He stood and offered his hand again, and this time Selena took it without hesitation. He pulled her to her feet, and for the first time in her life, Selena didn't feel small. She felt seen. "Welcome home, Selena Winter," Cassian said. "Your awakening begins now." As her brothers surrounded her, their combined presence creating a shield of protection she had never known, Selena felt something shift fundamentally inside her. The girl who had been broken on the ceremonial platform was beginning to fade, making room for someone new, someone stronger. Someone who would rise from the ashes of her suffering and become a force that would make the wolves who had tormented her tremble. The journey ahead would be brutal. Selena understood that much. There would be pain and struggle and moments where she wanted to give up, but she wouldn't be alone anymore. She had found her family, and through them, she would find herself. As they turned to leave the Silver Mist territory behind, Selena cast one last look at the ceremonial grounds in the distance. The celebration was still going on, the pack still reveling in their cruelty. The northern territories were unlike anything Selena had imagined. Where the Silver Mist Pack territory had been cold and unwelcoming, harsh even in its natural beauty, the Winterlands seemed to pulse with a warm vitality that made Selena's wolf stir with recognition. They had traveled through the night and most of the following day, moving at a pace that should have exhausted Selena, but somehow left her feeling more energized than she had in years. Cassian explained that it was the bond of family, of blood recognizing blood, that was giving her strength. The winter estate sprawled across a valley protected by mountains on 3 sides, with a river cutting through its heart like a silver ribbon. The main house was more a castle than a home, built from gray stone that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. But despite its imposing size, there was warmth to the place. Lights glowed in windows, and Selena could see pack members going about their evening routines with an ease and contentment she had never witnessed before. "This is where you were born," Cassian said as they approached the main entrance. "Your room has been kept exactly as it was the night you were taken. We never gave up hope that you would return to it." Selena's throat tightened. The idea that somewhere in the world there had been a place waiting for her all along seemed too precious to be real. They entered through massive wooden doors, carved with the same wolf and moon symbol that adorned her pendant. The interior was stunning, all soaring ceilings and rich tapestries, but what caught Selena's attention were the portraits lining the walls. She stopped before one particular painting, her breath catching. The woman in the portrait had Selena's eyes, the same unusual shade of gray that looked silver in certain light. She was beautiful and regal, with an alpha's bearing and a mother's gentleness in her expression. "That's our mother, Alara Winter," Alaric said softly, coming to stand beside Selena. "You have her eyes and her spirit. She was the strongest alpha female of her generation, feared by enemies and beloved by her pack. She died 3 months after you were taken, never giving up the search. The grief killed her as surely as any blade." The weight of that revelation settled over Selena. Her mother had died searching for her, had spent 3 months in agony before her heart finally gave out. The tragedy of it was almost too much to bear. "And your father?" Selena asked, though part of her dreaded the answer. Cassian gestured to another portrait, this one showing a man who radiated power and authority. His hair was dark like Cassian's, and his amber eyes held the same intensity. "Magnus Winter, Alpha Lord of the Northern Territories. He survived our mother by 2 years, but it was a hollow survival. He died in battle against a rogue incursion, and we always suspected he sought death as a release from his pain." Selena looked from the portraits to her 4 brothers, seeing the echoes of these lost parents in each of their faces. They had all paid a terrible price for her disappearance. The guilt of it threatened to overwhelm her, but Aemon seemed to sense her spiraling thoughts. "You were a child," he said firmly. "None of what happened was your fault. The blame rests entirely on those who took you and those who have kept you imprisoned all these years. Don't carry guilt that doesn't belong to you." A woman appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her presence commanding immediate attention. She was older, perhaps in her 60s, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant knot and eyes that held both warmth and sharp intelligence. She descended the stairs with the grace of someone who had been navigating these halls for decades. "My lords," she said, her voice carrying the authority of long familiarity, "I see you have finally brought our lost lady home." "Selena, this is Moira," Cassian said. "She was our mother's closest friend and has managed the Winter estate since our parents' deaths. Moira, may I present Selena Winter? Returned to us at last." Moira approached Selena, and to Selena's surprise, tears streamed down the older woman's face. "Oh, my sweet girl," she whispered, taking Selena's hands in hers. "I held you the day you were born. I helped raise you for the first 3 years of your life, and I have prayed every night since you were taken that I would live to see you again." The genuine emotion in Moira's voice broke something loose in Selena. She found herself pulled into an embrace, and for the first time since her brothers had found her, she allowed herself to cry. These weren't the tears of humiliation and pain she had shed on the ceremonial platform. These were tears of relief, of coming home, of finally being somewhere she belonged. When the emotional storm passed, Moira held Selena at arm's length, studying her with a healer's eye. "You're far too thin," she declared, "and these clothes are barely worthy of the name. We'll start with a bath and proper attire, then food, and then rest. The work of reclaiming your strength begins tomorrow." The room that had been Selena's was on the 3rd floor, with windows that overlooked the valley. It was decorated in soft blues and silvers, with toys and books that had belonged to a 3-year-old girl carefully preserved. On the nightstand was a photograph of a laughing child with wild dark hair and bright eyes, held in the arms of a woman Selena now recognized as her mother. "That was you," Cassian said from the doorway. That picture was taken 2 days before you were stolen. You were so full of life, so fearless. Our mother used to joke that you would probably lead our pack one day, that you had the heart of an alpha even as a toddler. Selena touched the photograph, trying to connect with the laughing child she had been. That girl seemed like a stranger, someone from a different lifetime. Could she ever become that carefree and confident again? The bath was a revelation. Hot water, scented oils, gentle hands washing away years of accumulated grime and pain. Moira supervised, clucking disapprovingly at every scar and poorly healed injury. Barbarians, she muttered. To treat any wolf this way, let alone an alpha's daughter, is unconscionable. After the bath, Selena was dressed in clothes that actually fit, soft fabrics that didn't chafe or constrict. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Clean and properly clothed, she could see hints of the girl in the photograph, the ghost of who she might have been. Dinner was served in a smaller, more intimate dining room. The table was laden with more food than Selena had seen in her entire life. Her brothers watched with barely concealed concern as she struggled to eat more than a few bites, her stomach having shrunk from years of near starvation. "It's all right," Alaric assured her. "Your body will adjust. For now, eat small amounts frequently. Within a week, your appetite will return properly." Over the meal, Eamon began Selena's education. He spoke of the winter lineage, of alphas and warriors who had shaped the history of their kind. He explained the complex politics of werewolf society, the alliances and feuds that governed interactions between packs, and he revealed the true extent of the Winter family's influence and power. "Our territory is the largest in the northern regions," Eamon explained, spreading out a detailed map on the table. "We control 17 smaller packs through alliance and mutual protection agreements. Our total population exceeds 10,000 wolves, making us one of the most powerful families in the entire werewolf hierarchy. When our parents died and you disappeared, many expected our enemies to move against us, to take advantage of our weakened state. But Cassian was 18 when he assumed leadership, and he has spent the last 12 years consolidating our power and searching for you." Selena looked at Cassian with new understanding. He had been only 6 years older than she was now, when the weight of an entire pack had fallen on his shoulders. The responsibility must have been crushing, yet he had not only survived but thrived. "Why didn't Alpha Theron know who I was?" Selena asked. "If the Winter family is so powerful, why didn't he recognize me?" Kieran answered, his expression dark. "Because the wolves who took you were professionals. They used magic to suppress your scent, to hide the markers that would have identified your bloodline. By the time Theron found you, you appeared to be exactly what he believed, an abandoned Omega with no family and no power. He took you in because it made him look merciful, and he kept you as an Omega because it gave his pack someone to abuse without consequence." The calculated cruelty of it made Selena's wolf snarl with rage. She had been deliberately hidden, her true nature suppressed so that she could be used and tormented without anyone questioning it. "But the magic should have faded," Alaric added. "Most enchantments that powerful can only last a few years at most. Something else has been suppressing your true nature, keeping your alpha wolf dormant. I'll need to examine you more thoroughly tomorrow to understand what we're dealing with." That night, Selena lay in the bed that should have been hers all along, staring at the ceiling and trying to process everything that had happened. Less than 24 hours ago, she had been standing on a ceremonial platform, experiencing the worst moment of her life. Now she was in a castle, surrounded by family, being told she was an alpha heir to one of the most powerful bloodlines in existence. It was too much. Part of her still expected to wake up in the pit to discover this had all been a desperate dream conjured by a dying mind. But the softness of the mattress beneath her was real. The full feeling in her stomach was real, and the absence of pain was gloriously, impossibly real. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, Selena dreamed. She stood in a forest clearing, and before her was a wolf of extraordinary size and power. Its fur was pure silver, like moonlight given form, and its eyes were the same gray-silver as Selena's own. The wolf regarded her with ancient intelligence, and Selena understood immediately that this was her true wolf, the alpha that had been trapped inside her for 17 years. "I am what you were meant to be," the silver wolf said, its voice resonating through Selena's mind. I am your strength, your power, your birthright. They tried to cage me, to diminish me. But I have always been here, waiting for the moment we could finally be whole. How do I free you? Selena asked in the dream. You already have, the wolf replied. By accepting your brothers, by claiming your name, you have begun the process. But it will take time and work. We have been broken, sister, and healing doesn't happen overnight. But together, we will become what we were always meant to be. Together, we will make them all see what they threw away. Selena woke with the dream still vivid in her mind. Dawn light streamed through her windows, painting her room in shades of gold and rose. She rose and went to the window, looking out over the valley that was her home. Somewhere out there, the Silver Mist pack was going about their day, probably never giving her another thought. Orion was likely congratulating himself on rejecting such a weak Omega before she could become a burden to him. The thought of Orion sent a spike of pain through her chest. The mate bond might have been rejected and severed, but its ghost remained, a phantom limb that ached whenever she thought of him. Alaric had warned her that the pain would fade with time, but for now it was a constant reminder of what she had lost, or perhaps what she had been spared from accepting. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Alaric entered, carrying a leather bag that clinked with the sound of glass vials. "Good morning," he said with a gentle smile. "I hope you slept well. I thought we should begin your examination and healing process before breakfast." What followed was the most thorough medical examination Selena had ever experienced. Alaric's healer abilities allowed him to see beyond the physical, to examine the very essence of her wolf. His expression grew increasingly grim as he worked, golden light flowing from his hands into Selena's body. "This is worse than I thought," he finally said. "There's a suppression working here, something that goes beyond the initial magic that was used to hide your identity. It's as if your wolf has been systematically starved, not just of proper nutrition, but of the fundamental energy that allows us to thrive. Every time you tried to access your alpha nature, something pushed it back down." "Can you fix it?" Selena asked, trying to keep the desperation from her voice. "Yes, but it will be a process. I'll need to work on you daily for at least a month, maybe longer. We'll be essentially rebuilding your connection to your wolf from the ground up. It will be uncomfortable, sometimes painful, but necessary." Alaric paused, his expression troubled. "Selena, I need to ask you something. Did Alpha Theron or anyone in his pack ever give you food or drink that seemed unusual? Anything that made you feel weaker or more disconnected from your wolf?" Selena thought back, sifting through years of memories. "There was a tea," she said slowly. "Theron's healer would bring it to me every morning, said it would help me stay healthy since I was so weak. It tasted bitter, but I was told to drink all of it." Alaric's hands clenched into fists, the only sign of his carefully controlled rage. "That wasn't medicine, it was poison, specifically designed to suppress alpha wolves. In small doses over time, it would have kept your true nature completely dormant. The fact that your wolf survived at all is a testament to how strong you truly are." The revelation that Alpha Theron had been deliberately poisoning her for years sent ice through Selena's veins. It hadn't been enough to keep her as an Omega. He had actively worked to ensure she could never become anything more. "Why?" Selena demanded. "Why go to such lengths? What threat could I possibly have been to him?" "That," Eamon's voice came from the doorway, "is exactly what I've been trying to determine." He entered with Kieran, both carrying stacks of documents. "We've been up all night going through the intelligence Kieran gathered. The picture it paints is disturbing." They moved to a table, spreading out papers covered in notes, photographs, and maps. Kieran pointed to a series of marked locations. "For the past 5 years, Alpha Theron has been systematically eliminating any wolves who might have recognized you or questioned your origins. 3 travelers who passed through Silver Mist and commented on your unusual eyes were found dead within weeks of leaving the territory. A visiting healer who suggested your wolf might be suppressed disappeared entirely. And a lower-ranked pack member who befriended you when you were younger died in a supposedly accidental fall." Each revelation was another blow, another layer of betrayal. Theron hadn't just kept Selena imprisoned, he had murdered anyone who might have helped her. "But why?" Selena repeated. "What does he gain from keeping me ignorant and weak?" Eamon pulled out a thick document, its pages covered in complex diagrams and annotations. This is where it gets truly sinister. Theron has been working with a dark mage, someone with expertise in blood magic and power transference. We believe he's been planning to use you in some kind of ritual. The word ritual sent a chill down Selena's spine. Blood magic was forbidden among most wolf packs, considered a corruption of the natural order. Any alpha who practiced it was hunted down and eliminated. "What kind of ritual?" she asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. "One that would allow him to steal your alpha power," Cassian said, entering the room with Moira. His expression was carved from stone, his alpha presence radiating barely controlled fury. The bloodline of the Winter family carries a particular strain of power, one that is exceptionally pure and strong. If Theron could harvest that power for himself, he would become one of the most formidable alphas in existence. He's been keeping you weak not just to hide you, but to ensure that when the time came for the ritual, you wouldn't be able to resist. Selena felt her legs weaken, and Alaric quickly guided her to a chair. Her entire existence had been carefully orchestrated torture, a long preparation for her eventual murder and the theft of her very essence. "When?" she asked. When was he planning to do this? Kieran consulted his notes. "Based on the correspondences we've intercepted, the ritual requires specific celestial alignment. The next such alignment occurs in 6 months, on the winter solstice." 6 months. The same time frame Alaric had suggested for her training. If her brothers hadn't found her when they did, if Orion's rejection hadn't driven her to the edge of pack territory where they could reach her, in 6 months she would have been sacrificed in a dark ritual to fuel Alpha Theron's ambitions. "We need to tell the council," Moira said firmly. "The regional Alpha Council needs to know what Theron is planning. They'll move against him immediately." But Cassian shook his head. "We could, but Theron has allies on the council. He's spent years building political connections and favors. Any accusation we make, he'll counter with influence and doubt. And without Selena as living proof of his crimes, our evidence becomes circumstantial. We need her to stand before the council, to show them what she really is, to testify to what was done to her." All eyes turned to Selena. The weight of their expectations was crushing. They wanted her to become the weapon that would bring down Alpha Theron, to transform from victim to avenger. But she was still so weak, so broken. How could she possibly become what they needed? As if reading her thoughts, Cassian knelt before her, bringing his face level with hers. "Sister, I know this is overwhelming. I know you're scared and uncertain, but you don't have to do this alone. We will train you, support you, and stand beside you every step of the way. And if after 6 months you decide you're not ready to face them, we will find another way. Your healing and your choice come first. Always." The sincerity in his voice, the genuine care in his eyes, gave Selena the anchor she needed. She wasn't alone anymore. She had family who would fight for her, who would give her the time and space to become strong. "Teach me," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "Show me how to be the alpha I was meant to be, and in 6 months I'll stand before the council and make sure Alpha Theron pays for everything he's done." Cassian's smile was fierce and proud. "Then we begin today." The training began immediately after breakfast, and Selena quickly learned that her brothers had no intention of coddling her. Despite Alaric's protests that she needed time to heal, Cassian insisted that her body and spirit would strengthen faster through challenge than through rest. The first week was brutal. Cassian worked with her on physical conditioning, pushing her through exercises that left her gasping and trembling. But unlike the forced labor at Silver Mist, this was purposeful. Every movement was designed to build strength and endurance, and when Selena stumbled or failed, Cassian was there to help her up and encourage her to try again. "Your muscles have memory," he told her during a particularly difficult session. "Right now, they remember weakness and pain. We're teaching them to remember power instead." Alaric's healing sessions were equally intense. Each day, he would spend hours working on Selena, his golden light burning away the poison that had accumulated in her system and strengthening her connection to her wolf. The process was agonizing, like having every cell in her body slowly set on fire and reformed. But gradually, Selena began to feel different, stronger, more whole. By the end of the second week, Selena could feel her wolf more clearly than ever before. The silver presence from her dream was becoming more tangible, more real. Her senses sharpened, her reflexes quickened, and the constant exhaustion that had plagued her entire life began to lift. Eamon's lessons were different but no less challenging. He educated her on pack politics, werewolf history, and the intricacies of alpha authority. He taught her how to read people, how to identify lies and manipulation, how to command respect through presence rather than force. "You've spent 17 years being invisible," he told her. "Now you need to learn how to be unforgettable." Kieran's training was the most unsettling. He taught her how to move through shadows, how to observe without being seen, how to defend herself with lethal efficiency. His lessons often took place in the dead of night, when Selena thought she was safe in her room, only to find Kieran somehow inside, testing her awareness and reflexes. "Enemies will not wait for convenient times to strike," he said, after Selena had screamed at finding him perched on her windowsill at 3 a.m. "You must be prepared always." As the weeks passed, Selena began to transform. The hollow-cheeked, broken girl who had arrived at the winter estate was being replaced by someone new. Proper nutrition filled out her frame, revealing a body that was naturally athletic and strong. Her hair, when clean and cared for, fell in glossy dark waves, and her eyes, those unusual gray-silver eyes she had inherited from her mother, began to hold a light that commanded attention rather than pity. 2 months into her training, Alaric declared that the poison had been fully purged from her system. "Your connection to your wolf is nearly restored," he said. "I think it's time to attempt a proper shift, one where you're not exhausted and terrified." The entire family gathered for the event, along with several trusted pack members who had known Selena as a child. They stood in a clearing near the estate, under a moon that was 3/4 full. Selena could feel her wolf pacing inside her, eager and powerful in a way she had never experienced before. "Remember," Cassian said, "your wolf is not your enemy. She is you, the truest version of yourself. Don't fight the transformation. Welcome it." Selena closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. The shift came fast and smooth, nothing like the agonizing transformation at the Silver Mist ceremony. One moment she was human, the next she was on 4 legs, her senses exploding with new information. The gasps around her were gratifying. Selena looked down at herself and understood their shock. Her wolf was magnificent. She was large, nearly as big as Cassian in his alpha form. Her fur was the silver of moonlight, so bright it almost seemed to glow. And when she caught her reflection in a nearby stream, she saw eyes that held both human intelligence and wolf instinct in perfect balance. "By the moon goddess," Moira whispered, "she's the image of Alara, the same coloring, the same size, the same presence." Cassian shifted into his own wolf form and approached Selena. His wolf was massive and dark as midnight, a perfect contrast to Selena's silver. He touched his nose to hers in a gesture of acceptance and welcome, and Selena felt something settle inside her. This was who she had always been meant to be. This was her true self. Finally free. They ran together that night, Selena and her brothers, racing through the forests of the winter territory. Selena's wolf was fast and sure, her movements instinctive and graceful. She felt powerful in a way she had never imagined possible. The weak Omega who had collapsed on the ceremonial platform was gone, replaced by an Alpha who could hold her own against any challenger. As her physical transformation progressed, Selena's emotional healing proved more complex. The scars left by 17 years of abuse couldn't be erased as easily as the poison in her system. She had nightmares regularly, dreams where she was back at Silver Mist, where Orion rejected her over and over, where Alpha Theron stood over her with cruel satisfaction in his eyes. Moira became her confidant during these difficult times, sitting with Selena through the long nights when sleep wouldn't come. "Healing isn't linear," she told Selena. "You'll have good days and bad days. The key is to keep moving forward even when the past tries to pull you back." 3 months into her training, a visitor arrived at the winter estate. He was a beta from a neighboring pack, a wolf named Lucian Vaylor, who served as an ambassador and mediator between various territories. He was in his late 20s, with kind brown eyes and an easy smile that immediately put Selena at ease. Lucian had come to discuss trade agreements with Cassian, but from the moment he saw Selena, his attention was divided. He treated her with a respect and gentleness that she had rarely experienced, and there was an attraction between them that Selena couldn't deny. "You're different from other alphas I've met," Lucian told her one evening as they walked through the estate gardens. "There's a depth to you, an understanding of suffering that makes you more real, more human than those who have known only power their entire lives." Selena found herself drawn to Lucian in a way that both excited and frightened her. The ghost of the mate bond with Orion still ached sometimes, a reminder of what should have been. But Lucian offered something different, a connection built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than mystical destiny. "I'm not looking for a mate," she told him honestly. "I'm not sure I ever will be after what happened." Lucian smiled with understanding. "I'm not asking to be your mate. I'm asking to be your friend, and perhaps, if you're willing, something more when you're ready. No pressure, no expectations, just two wolves enjoying each other's company." The straightforward simplicity of his offer was refreshing. Selena agreed, and over the following weeks, a genuine friendship developed between them. Lucian made her laugh, something she hadn't realized she could still do. He listened to her stories without judgment and shared his own experiences with an openness that made vulnerability feel safe. But Cassian watched the developing relationship with concern. "Lucian is a good male," he told Selena one day during training. "But you need to be careful. Your heart is still healing, and it would be easy to use him as a bandage for wounds that need proper treatment." Selena knew her brother was right, but she also knew that Lucian represented something important, proof that she could have normal relationships, that not every connection had to be painful or complicated. 4 months into her training, Eamon declared that Selena was ready to begin learning the formal protocols of alpha authority. This meant understanding the complex social structures that governed werewolf society, the proper way to address other alphas, the subtle signals of dominance and submission that communicated volumes without words. "You are not just any alpha," Eamon explained. "You are a winter, heir to one of the oldest and most respected bloodlines. When you enter a room, that heritage should be evident in every movement, every word, every glance. Power is as much about perception as reality." They practiced endlessly, running through scenarios where Selena would have to negotiate with hostile alphas, defend her position against challenges, and command respect from wolves who might initially dismiss her. It was exhausting work, but Selena found she had an instinct for it, a natural authority that had been buried under years of oppression. 5 months after her rescue, Cassian announced that it was time for Selena to attend a regional gathering. "You've been hidden away here long enough," he said. "It's time for the werewolf community to know that Selena Winter has returned." The gathering was held at a neutral location, a large estate that served as a meeting ground for the various packs in the northern regions. Alphas from dozens of territories would be present, along with their heirs and senior pack members. It would be Selena's first public appearance since her rescue, her formal introduction to werewolf society. Moira spent hours preparing Selena for the event, selecting a gown that was both elegant and powerful. The dress was silver, echoing Selena's wolf coloring, with intricate embroidery that incorporated the Winter family symbol. When Selena looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the confident woman staring back at her. The gathering was overwhelming. Hundreds of wolves filled the estate, their combined alpha presence creating an atmosphere that crackled with power. Selena entered on Cassian's arm, her other brothers flanking them, and felt every eye in the room turn to assess her. The whispers started immediately. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why were the Winter brothers treating her with such deference? Selena kept her head high, channeling every lesson Eamon had taught her about projecting confidence and authority. Cassian led her to the center of the grand hall and raised his hand for silence. The crowd quieted, curiosity evident on every face. "Friends and allies," Cassian's voice rang out with alpha command. I present to you Selena Winter, daughter of Magnus and Alara Winter, my sister and heir to the Winter bloodline, returned to us after 15 years of absence." The announcement sent shockwaves through the assembled wolves. The disappearance of the Winter heir had been one of the great mysteries of recent werewolf history. Many had assumed she was dead, her body never recovered. To learn that she was alive and standing before them was earth-shaking news. Selena felt the weight of their scrutiny, wolves from across the regions examining her for any sign of weakness or deception. She met their gazes, steadily, allowing them to see the alpha power in her eyes, the unmistakable mark of the Winter bloodline. An older alpha pushed through the crowd, his expression skeptical. "A convenient claim," he said loudly. "How do we know this isn't some imposter you've found, Cassian? What proof do you offer that this girl is who you claim?" Before Cassian could respond, Selena stepped forward. She had been warned this might happen, had prepared for exactly this challenge. "I am Selena Winter," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "Daughter of Alara and Magnus, stolen as a child and hidden for 15 years. If you doubt my bloodline, you need only look." She reached up and released her hair from its elegant styling, letting it fall around her shoulders. Then she allowed her eyes to shift, taking on the silvery glow of her wolf. The resemblance to Alara Winter, whose portraits hung in every major packhouse in the region, was unmistakable. But Selena wasn't finished. She called on her wolf, allowing just enough of the transformation to occur that silver fur rippled across her arms and her alpha presence flooded the room. The power in her was undeniable, the particular quality of strength that marked the Winter line. The skeptical alpha stepped back, his challenge dying on his lips. Around the room, wolves lowered their eyes in instinctive submission to the display of pure alpha dominance. Selena held the presence for a moment longer, then allowed herself to return fully to human form. "Any other questions?" she asked calmly. There were none. The gathering erupted in excited conversation, alphas approaching to offer congratulations and express their amazement. Selena handled each interaction with the grace Aemon had taught her, accepting their acknowledgments while maintaining her alpha dignity. It was during this celebration that Selena caught a familiar scent. Her wolf snarled in recognition, and she turned to see a group of wolves entering late to the gathering. At their head was Alpha Theron of the Silver Mist Pack, and beside him walked Orion. Time seemed to slow. Across the crowded room, Orion's eyes met Selena's, and she saw shock, disbelief, and something that might have been horror flash across his face. He clearly hadn't expected to see her here, hadn't imagined that the broken Omega he had rejected could be standing in this gathering, radiating alpha power and claiming one of the most prestigious bloodlines in their world. Alpha Theron's reaction was more controlled, but Selena saw the flash of fear in his eyes before he masked it. He recognized her, and in that instant of recognition, he knew his carefully constructed plans were unraveling. Cassian moved to Selena's side, his presence protective and possessive. "Brother," he said, his voice carrying a sharp edge despite the friendly term. "It seems we have unexpected guests." Before anyone could respond, Lucian appeared, at Selena's other side. His arrival was a statement of support, a beta of significant standing choosing to align himself with Selena in this moment of tension. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. "Alpha Theron," Selena said, her voice steady despite the riot of emotions churning inside her. "What a surprise to see you here. I don't recall your pack being invited to this particular gathering." It was a deliberate slight, a suggestion that Theron was not welcome among the assembled alphas. Several wolves in the crowd made small sounds of approval. The Silver Mist Pack's reputation had been declining in recent years, whispers of dark dealings and questionable alliances making other alphas wary. Theron forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We received word of an important announcement and came to offer our respects. I had no idea the Winter heir had been found. What extraordinary news." "Yes," Aemon said, stepping forward with a folder of documents. "Extraordinary indeed, especially considering where she was found. Tell us, Alpha Theron, in all the years Selena was living in your territory, did you never wonder about her origins?" The trap was sprung with surgical precision. Every wolf in the room was now watching Theron, waiting for his answer. If he claimed ignorance, he looked incompetent. If he admitted knowledge, he would have to explain why he had kept an alpha heir as an abused omega. "I found her abandoned as a child," Theron said carefully. "I had no reason to suspect she was anything more than an orphaned omega." "Really?" Kieran's voice came from behind Theron, making the alpha spin around. "Because I have testimonies from 3 wolves who suggested Selena might be more than she appeared. All 3 died under mysterious circumstances shortly after making those observations." "Quite a coincidence," the gathered alphas muttered darkly. Killing to hide information was a serious crime, one that could result in a pack losing its status and protection. Selena felt a surge of vicious satisfaction watching Theron squirm, but it was Orion's face she couldn't stop staring at. He looked devastated, his eyes fixed on her with an expression that might have been anguish. The rejected mate bond was howling between them, a connection that had been severed, but never truly died. "Orion," she said softly, and the entire room fell silent to hear what she would say. "You rejected me quite publicly, as I recall, called me weak and pathetic, said you would rather die mateless than accept me. Do you remember?" Orion's face had gone pale. "Selena, Don't," she cut him off. "I don't need your excuses or your apologies. I just want you to look at me now and understand exactly what you threw away. I want you to spend the rest of your life knowing that your fated mate, the woman the moon goddess herself chose for you, was standing right in front of you, and you were too blind and arrogant to see her worth." The pain in Orion's eyes was evident to everyone present, and Selena felt a dark satisfaction at causing it. This was justice, the beginning of the reckoning she had promised herself. But Cassian's hand on her shoulder warned her not to push further. Not yet. They had made their statement, revealed Selena's identity, and publicly questioned Theron's actions. To do more now would appear petty. There would be time for full justice later. "This gathering is meant to be a celebration," Cassian announced to the room. "Let us not allow unpleasant business to ruin it. Alpha Theron, perhaps you and your son should return home. I'm sure you have much to discuss." It was a dismissal, and a very public one. Theron had no choice but to leave, his reputation damaged and his dark plans exposed to scrutiny. As he and Orion retreated from the gathering, Selena felt a wave of triumph. This was only the beginning, but it was a powerful start. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and congratulations. Alphas who had known her parents shared stories of Alara and Magnus, giving Selena glimpses into the life she should have had. And through it all, Lucian stayed by her side, his quiet support meaning more than he probably realized. When they finally returned to the winter estate in the early hours of morning, Selena was exhausted but exhilarated. She had faced her tormentors and emerged victorious. She had claimed her identity before the entire werewolf community, and she had seen the beginning of justice being served. "1 month left," Cassian said as they stood on the estate's terrace, watching the sun rise over the valley. "In 1 month, the winter solstice arrives. The council will convene to hear evidence against Alpha Theron. Are you ready to testify, to stand before them and tell your story?" Selena thought about the broken girl she had been 6 months ago, huddled at the edge of packed territory with nothing left to lose. She thought about the journey she had traveled, the family she had found, the strength she had reclaimed, and she thought about the silver wolf that now ran free inside her, powerful and proud. "I'm ready," she said, "not just to testify, but to ensure that Theron pays for everything he's done. He wanted my power for himself. Instead, he's going to watch as I use it to destroy everything he's built." Cassian smiled, fierce and proud. "That's my sister, Selena Winter, the Omega who became a legend." As the sun continued its climb, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Selena made a silent promise to the girl she had been. She would get justice, not just for herself, but for every wolf who had suffered under Alpha Theron's rule. She would stand before the council as living proof of his crimes, and she would ensure that the name Selena Winter became synonymous not with weakness and rejection, but with strength and vindication. The awakening was complete. Now came the reckoning. 6 months ago, Selena had been nothing. Now she was everything she was always meant to be. And in 30 days, the entire werewolf world would witness the full extent of her transformation. The Omega had become an alpha, the victim had become a warrior, the forgotten child had become a legend. And she was just getting started. If you've made it this far in Selena's incredible journey of transformation, you're truly invested in her story. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another captivating tale of courage, revenge, and redemption. Drop a comment below telling us what you think will happen when Selena faces the council. Will she get the justice she deserves? What should Orion's punishment be? We read every comment and love hearing your thoughts. Now, let's see how this legend continues to unfold.